This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone to the demo session on cloud performance engineering in DevOps. So this is Roshan Kumar. Uh, like I have like around 14 years of experience in IT industry, mostly into performance engineering in Java and Python development. From last 5 years, I'm also working in cloud. So I'm a certified architect associate cloud professional and also been involved into automation as well, using Java, Python, PL SQL, shell scripting, and Selenium. Currently, I'm working as a principal SRE. Yeah. So this will be the agenda of our discussion today. It's a demo session. So we'll just understand the software development and deployment evolution, how software were developed and deployed over the years. We'll just go over that, and then we'll go over the course syllabus today, and we'll set the expectations, and then you can ask your questions. Then how we're gonna cover this entire course. So this agenda of the course is this today, and then we'll take up maybe from there will be one more demo session where we'll go over some. We'll actually start the course journey, uh, and yes, so that will be the agenda for today. Okay, so let's start with a question. So I hope most of us here are performance engineers, performance testers, or a budding a DevOps engineer or DevOps performance DevOps engineer. And if I have to ask this question, that are performance engineers expected to know these nowadays, looking at the current market trend that we have going on in the market? So do we need to know all these things, like DevOps, microservices, containers, and the cloud? Nowadays, if we think about any solution, any infrastructure implementation that's happening in cloud nowadays, most of the companies have understood the importance of working in cloud. They can get started. They don't need to provision their own data centers, and they can get their application deployed, and they don't need to have their on-prem infrastructure completely set up. It's a very uh, costly affair thing to do that. So we are leveraging cloud nowadays. You guys must be knowing about that. And then we have this microservices. We are making a good transition from monolithic to microservices architecture, where we are breaking up all the our complex monolithic application to microservices. And then to run those microservices, we need containers, right? And we talk about container engine like Docker, and then container orchestration engine like Kubernetes. That's what we are talking nowadays, and we are shifting our development methodology from agile to DevOps nowadays, because we want everything to be automated in a continuous fashion. So if you look at these four terms which I have put in this slide, so this is what going on in the market right now. And everyone, I would expect everyone would agree with this, that yes, we need to know about all these things as per the current market trend. So that's the one. We have a slide for software development and deployment evolution, how the software was developed and deployed over the years. So if you look at the, I have four sections here. One for the development process. So back in 1980s, we started with waterfall model. So we used to develop, the development used to happen once, and then once the development is complete, we start with the testing process. It has a lot of disadvantages than advantages, and we all understand about this waterfall model, right? So once software is developed, and then we start the testing process, and if we find some major bug from architecture issue, it's very difficult to cater those needs if we have found a flaw in the architecture itself. So those kind of issues we were facing in waterfall. So we understood the disadvantages, with waterfall, and we moved to agile, where the software development was split it into chunks. We divided this complete software development process into various sprints. We call it, right, in the agile word. And then we once one part of the software is developed, then it tested, then another part of software was tested, and again this process went on, and it reduced the drawbacks of waterfall model. And now we are into DevOps phase, where we would like to have everything automated. And we want the all our development activities, testing activity, deployment activities, all these activities to happen in a continuous fashion and an automated fashion. We don't need, we want to remove the manual process involved in the case of what we have in the case of agile. So that's what we are working on currently, DevOps. Even if you look at the application architecture, we used to have big complex monolithic applications, and now we're talking about microservices. Nowadays we're trying to break this big monolithic application to microservices, so that we get better resiliency, we can get better scaling up. There are a lot of advantages of microservices. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Maybe in another demo session we'll just go over that, quite explain about what is this monolithic and microservices, and what is the advantages of those stuff. And then we have this physical server. Back in 1980s, we used to what we used to do is to deploy our even the smallest application to a bigger physical server. So a lot of resource was wasted. We were not able to efficiently utilize the resource. So small few KBs or MB software we should deploy in the bigger physical server. We should waste a lot of resource. So this virtualization came into picture around 2000, and then we created VMs. You guys must be knowing about this virtualization softwares like Hypervisor, or we have uh, a lot of VMware softwares which can virtualize the underlying hardware, and you can create VMs. And then what you can do, you can host your server in each of these VMs. So, and suppose in this physical server we were deploying one application, and in the same hardware configuration we can deploy multiple applications now, because we split the hardware into VMs. And nowadays we are talking about containerization. Even so, we are further breaking down one VM into various containers, and for that we need container engine like Docker. Uh, One of the popular container engine is Docker. So using that, we convert that to mm, various containers. For one VM can have multiple containers. So we were able to utilize the resource much more in a much more efficient manner when we talk about containerization. Again, the same thing for the data centers. So we earlier there was no option of hosting. You can host your application somewhere else. If you want to develop your application, you have to set up your own data structure, data center. Your entire hardware, you have to buy land, you have to purchase all the hardware, you have to maintain cooling mechanism, you have to build up the entire infrastructure. It was a huge costly affair. Setting up a data center is not that simple. uh, Not everyone can do that. And then around 2000 we started to use this hosting thing. We started to host our application uh, into some other resources, some other hardware. We used to do that, but nowadays we have this public cloud concept, where we leverage the resources of the public cloud. Like we have AWS, we have Azure, we have GCP, Google Cloud Platform, we have OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, we have Alibaba, so DigitalOcean. We have so many cloud providers now. Now, what we can do, we can simply rent those resources, few hardware, few resources, we can rent, and we can deploy our application, and we can pay uh, the rent of the hardware, the resource that we are using. So in that case, I don't need to set up the complete data structure to host my application. So it's a boon for a few startups and even for the emerging companies where they don't have the initial funding to create the data center. So it's a huge revolution nowadays. We are in the phase where the deploying a software is and by this containerization, we were able to utilize the resource better. So if you look at this DevOps, microservices, and containers and cloud, so that's where we are currently right now. And we need to know about all these things in detail now. That's what this course is all about. We are covering all these things in our course. So I'll just go over the course syllabus now, and then in the next demonstration, I'm gonna cover this particular slide in detail. That will be the next demonstration. But so today, the focus would be on the course syllabus to set expectations and to check your questions and you can clarify your doubts. So this is the course syllabus that we have. We're gonna talk about AWS cloud computing. So on the cloud part, so we are targeting all these four things here in the course. That's the main objective of this course. We on the cloud side we talk of AWS, Amazon Web Services, uh, and it's we cover a lot of things about AWS. We will get you comfortable, and we start from scratch. I assume that the my audience doesn't know anything about these things at all. DevOps services, microservices, containers, and cloud. They are new to these topics. That's what I understand, and then I take up the course content, and that's how uh, I go about my this course. So we'll start with the very scratch, considering that you have never worked on any of the cloud service providers. You're working on the on-prem infrastructure. So we'll take up this AWS. We'll devote around 2 to 3 weeks in AWS. I'll go about the course syllabus, what all things we're covering in the AWS. So this is the high-level course syllabus right now, uh, and we'll talk about Linux command line, because to work in AWS, to work in microservices, to work in containers, to work in Kubernetes, uh, Jenkins, most of our applications are deployed in Linux operating system. You hope everyone would agree. Most of our applications. I'm not saying we cannot deploy in Windows. We can, but most of our applications are deployed are in Linux operating system, and that's why understanding of Linux command line is very important. So we'll cover that Linux command line. If anyone is new to Linux world, so they would be highly benefited from this. So we spend around a week's time in Linux command line. We also talk about shell scripting. How can you automate your cells? How do you write shell scripts to automate few of your manual activities? We use shell scripting to monitor your performance monitoring as well, to collect metrics for performance monitoring over the test duration. Suppose if you do not have any commercial tool in your organization, so how can you leverage shell scripting to collect these metrics, performance metrics for the test duration, so that you get to see your CPU, memory, disk, and all those details that you would like to have to analyze, uh, to troubleshoot if there are any issues, to just check the status of your test. How about your resource consumption when you're subjected to this much of load to this environment. So we'll go over that the next command line. We'll understand the application architectures, monolithic, what is monolithic, what is microservices, what is the advantages, disadvantages of monolithic, the advantages and disadvantages of microservices. We'll go over that. I would request everyone to be on mute. Um, I do see one noise. Let me just, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we'll talk about microservices, and then we talk of container engine, because to the runtime environment for microservices. Microservices is a subset of your application, of your bigger monolithic application. It's a subset. And where can we run these microservices? So the runtime environment for microservices are containers, and for those containers to run, we need for those containers to create, we need a container engine like Docker. The most popular container engine is Docker. So we'll go over that. We'll talk about Docker Compose. We'll talk about a lot of commands of Docker. You'll get comfortable in Docker. How do we work with containers? And that's what this IT industry is moving. We are talking about containers now, and we need to understand. And we mostly talk of Docker. That's the most popular container engine. So we'll take up the Docker, and then if you have a lot of containers, and how do you manage those containers for load balancing, for auto scheduling, for auto scaling? So you need a container orchestration engine like Kubernetes. So we'll talk about that, Kubernetes, and then we'll understand the performance engineering in DevOps. On the Kubernetes side, we are also touching base on the EKS, one of the popular Amazon services like Elastic Kubernetes Service. I'll just walk you over the the AWS Cloud Console to make you understand what all we're going to cover in the Kubernetes, and then we'll talk about the performance engineering in DevOps. So we have covered cloud, microservices, containers, and not DevOps. So how performance engineering fits in DevOps? Where do we exactly fit in DevOps? And how do we create the CI/CD pipeline using Jenkins? Because Jenkins is the most popular third-party tool that we have. We have services in AWS as well, where we do not need to rely on Jenkins, but uh, CI/CD pipeline, if we talk, and if we do not talk about Jenkins, that doesn't make any sense. So we'll talk of Jenkins. We're gonna create CI/CD pipeline in Jenkins. We're gonna demonstrate, and everything is hands-on here. Everything will be hands-on. So nothing, no theoretical knowledge. Yes, obviously there will be theoretical knowledge to make you guys understand about the topic, and then we're gonna practice everything in Cloud Console. So that's the high-level course syllabus that we have. And if we just break down this, like let's say AWS. So what all we're gonna cover in AWS? So it's a cloud computing. So we're gonna cover these many things in AWS. We're gonna start with very basic. So that is the USP of this course, that we start with very basic. So it's for the newbie as well. That perfectly suits for the newbie. If someone is very new to this cloud world and they do not understand what is this cloud and what is the difference between on-prem and cloud, what are the service models, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, so and deployment models, and they have never been used any cloud console, and they have not know about any of these services in cloud console. So we are covering everything from very scratch. So as you can see from the course syllabus here, we are talking about cloud computing introduction. First, these things will be theoretical section. What is cloud computing? And the service models. What do we mean by service models? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. What is deployment models? Public, private, and hybrid community models. The major cloud providers that what we have currently. And then we're gonna create an AWS account. Everyone will be having the AWS account. I'm gonna just show how it looks. So everyone will gonna have this AWS account. This is AWS account. That's my AWS account here. Everyone will need to create this, and then we're gonna practice everything here. How do we create server? How do we provision server? How do we set up security? How do we create networking? Everything from scratch will be covered using this AWS console. Everyone will have to need to create an account here. It's a free tier account. No one would be charged anything. You will have to create yourself. I'm gonna guide you how to create this, and then we're gonna cover everything. And we have a lot of services here. We have EC2, the most popular, where we create instances. We have VPC, where we talk about the networking, a virtual private cloud. We have here we have something called cloud, like a lot of services are there. CloudWatch is there. We have IAM, where we talk about the identity and access management, and then we have a lot of security groups. What do we mean? How do we secure the server? So that's what we're going to cover here. A lot of details, a lot of services that you see here. We're going to cover everything in Cloud Console, and then we'll talk about. First of all, we'll set up the budget setup. How do we create? Well, again, budget is one of the again services, AWS services. So services you can understand like it's a functionality, it's a module of in the Cloud Console. We're going to understand the core cloud concepts. What do we mean by high availability? If I talk about disaster recovery, what do we exactly mean by that? So there are the few cloud related terms that we need to understand. What are these AWS regions and what are these AZs, availability zones? What do we mean by that? The security, the IAM here, the identity and access management. What do we mean by this? How do we set up the security? And we have security groups, we have a NACL, network access control list, we have public private subnets. A lot of details are there that need to be understand. Suppose if you're working, being a performance engineer, we need to work in an environment if it's deployed in cloud. And if you do not understand the meaning of it, how it's being deployed, how can we performance tune that? Or performance, how can we improve on the performance side? So we need to understand these things. We need to get comfortable, how we are comfortable working in on-prem infrastructure. How do we understand VPC, how this networking is working? How can we secure our application? How can we implement a cloud solution? So that's all comes from the performance thing, and we need to understand about everything here. How do we connect to EC2 instance remotely? So we're going to create instances, and then I'm going to create those instances remotely. I have one instance here. See, so that's the instance I have currently. I am connected using PuTTY. We're going to demonstrate everything by connecting to the server because we're going to work in the server, right? So how do we connect? How do we use PuTTY, and what is this private key? What is this public key? We're going to talk about everything here. So that's the instance you see up here. That's the private IP, we call it. What's the difference between private, public, and elastic IP, static IP? We need to understand these things. So that's the private IP. If you look at my cloud console, that's the it's one of the servers that I have created, provisioned, and that's the server I'm talking about here. If you look at my private IP, you will see it's exactly matching. So that's the server I have logged into, 172.31.40.209. That's the private IP, and that's the public IP, accessible to the public IP. So what is the difference between a public, private, elastic, static IP? So we need to understand about all these things. So we're gonna connect to the EC2 instance, and we're gonna talk about, we're gonna demonstrate. It's a complete hands-on session. So that's what it is. Then a lot of other AWS services. Once you understand this private, public, and elastic IP, how do we connect remotely? What is security group? How can you make your cloud solution secure? What is the storage services that we have in 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 AWS? We have EBS volumes, we have EFS, we have S3. So we have nothing but the services, but we need to understand the storage services, the networking part of it. How do we create network? How this VPC, virtual private cloud? How do we create this VPC? What is this internet gateway? How can we access the internet? Uh, uh, I'm connected. So this currently this EC2 instance is in Mumbai region. In AWS has a data center in Mumbai, and I'm connected remotely to this machine. So if I do not have the internet connectivity, I need to configure the internet connectivity on my uh, cloud console. So if you look at here, so currently I'm in this Mumbai region. So similarly, there are other regions as well. I can create my server anywhere. So if we talk about VPC here, VPC is again one of the AWS services that's called virtual private cloud. And I need to configure the internet gateway. If I do not configure the internet gateway, I cannot, that's the internet gateway I'm connected to. Through this internet gateway, I have connected to this instance remotely. So we're going to talk about we have something called NAT as well, Network Access Translation List. So we're going to talk about a lot of things in the cloud uh, arena. Okay, and it will be from very basics. We're going to talk about serverless services that we have, like Lambda, API gateway. What is this soft simple notification service? What is this cloud formation? We create infrastructure in AWS using cloud formation, like how we have Terraform. We create is a third-party tool, Terraform, but for the AWS, it's the cloud formation, Beanstalk, and then at last but not the least, ELB, Elastic Load Balancing and Auto Scaling Group. For the performance engineers, we need to make sure that the load balancing is proper, and the auto scaling, if the user is increasing on the server, user hits are increasing, so automatically I would like my servers to get provisioned to accommodate the extra user load that we have. So how do we configure this elastic load balancing and auto scaling group? So that needs to be understood. So we're gonna talk about that. And then cloud monitoring. How do we monitor the resources? So what all option I have in cloud? So we in cloud in AWS we have CloudWatch, and we can monitor all our resources using CloudWatch. We have containers. For containers, we have CloudWatch Container Insights. We can also monitor the containers like Kubernetes setup. We can also monitor all those stuff using CloudWatch. We have AWS X-Ray to troubleshoot performance issues. So we're going to talk about each and everything about. We'll be very much comfortable working in cloud in AWS after this course. So this we completely cover the entire thing. This the cloud part, like 3 to 4 weeks. We cover this 3 weeks. We devote on this completely, and the course will be for like 1 hour every day in weekdays, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. IST, and you can convert with other time zones. So that's the cloud computing. Secondly, on the Linux command line, we're going to talk about microservices and containers and Kubernetes. So for those we're there to work on, we need to be very much comfortable working in Linux command line, and that's why we have put this this topic here. Over the period of time, I understood that after a few batches, I understood that we need to know these things, and people are not comfortable working in Linux the way how they are comfortable working in Windows. They think like it's a black box, but it is not actually. We just need to understand how do we perform any activity in the Linux operating system, the way we work in Windows. Suppose if we want to open a file in Windows, we just do a
Uh,
double.
sorry to interrupt, Rushan. I have one question regarding this topic. You have a, you have put the topic as 10 as installation packages, right? So do we have uninstallation packages as well in that? Means
Okay,
in
so
case of
this I'm going to talk about that. Okay, Purvojit. So let me complete this, then I'm going to take up the question. Sure.
sure, sure.
And meanwhile, if you have questions, you can, there is a chat window. You can drop your questions there. I'm looking at the chat window,
Okay.
so I'll definitely answer your question. So let me complete with the flow first. I don't want to distract everyone here. Yeah, thank you. So we're going to talk about this Linux command line. That's what I have understood, that people are not comfortable working in Linux the way they are working comfortable in Windows. Suppose if you want to zip a file, if I tell you in Windows that please zip a file, you can easily do a right click on a directory folder and you can just right click and zip it. But if I tell you the same thing work to do to zip a file in Linux, you might not know. So you just need to know about few commands, and that's it. After understanding, after knowing few commands, it's easy for you to perform that activity. So my tagline for the Linux command line is get as comfortable with Linux as you are with Windows. So we're going to think whatever you perform in Windows, you open a directory, you do, if in a file, if you intend to search a word, what do? You do Control F, and then you simply type a word. But if I ask you to do the same thing in Linux, how would you do that? You can replace a word in a file you can do a control H and you can find a word and you can replace with your desired word. If I ask you to do the same thing in Linux, can you do that? So it's just an operating system. It's just an operating system. The way the how we have languages, so it's just an operating system. We just need to know how do we work here, how do we operate, how do we perform this particular activity. That's it. And once we are comfortable working in Linux, so it's very easy to go over microservices, Kubernetes, and Jenkins, and everything. Whatever you work in Linux, everything becomes damn easy. So that's what we're gonna cover, and you can just you can just see that we have a lot of thing here: system information, hardware information, and how do we collect performance metrics. We have a lot of commands in Linux that we call Linux native commands. We can just we can do a file permissions. So if you want to do something on the file permissions, you can also do that. So there are a lot of activity. I'm going to talk about all these things. Uh, in this takes around 4 to 5 sessions to cover, and then at last we're going to talk about the shell scripting. Shell scripting is very important to automate a manual series of tasks in Linux, and that's what we're gonna cover at last. After completing your uh, the the command session, we're gonna understand how do we write shell script for the performance monitoring, and then we will end up this particular chapter. So that's the Linux command line. Then we talk about the architectures. What is this monolithic architecture? What is this microservices architecture? Uh, I recently did a workshop. So if you are looking for this information, brief information, you can just put in the group that and there are people who can share the recordings. So you'll understand a brief about what is this monolithic architecture and what is microservice architecture and the advantages and disadvantages of that. And then we'll talk about containers because the runtime environment for microservices are containers. And that's what we need to understand in detail because nowadays we are deploying our application in containers. We have more containerized application nowadays, and because for one simple reason, using containers, we can utilize the resource in a much efficient manner. That's what we from physical server, from virtualization we created VMs, and now using container engine we are creating containers. And for one simple reason, we are able to utilize the resource better. We would like to utilize the resource better. We don't want our resource, our hardware to be underutilized. For that simple reason, this container engine is a boon, and it's a revolution. And we can deploy one application in a very minimal resource requirement. We can do that. We'll understand how do we create containers, and we'll talk about a lot of other things like how do we create containers, why do we need Docker, and what is this Docker hub, how do we install Docker, the latest version of Docker, and the common Docker operations, what all activity that you can do. For now, you can see that I can pull and push from any image from Docker Hub. And once I run the image, it becomes container. I can stop the container. I can delete the container. I can do a lot of activities. We have Docker Compose. Using Docker Compose, you can create one application in just 10 to 15 seconds. That's it. That's what it takes, and it's very lightweight. It's easy to boot up containers. A lot of advantages are there for containers, and that's what people are inclined toward nowadays. They everyone is talking about containers and everyone talking about Kubernetes. That's what it is right now. And how do we create image also using a Docker file? We'll also understand that as part of container engine. And once we have created the containers and now we have more containers, how do we manage those containers? For that, we need a container orchestration engine like Kubernetes. So that's what we're going to discuss in Kubernetes. Everything about Kubernetes that we need to know as a performance engineer. What is Kubernetes? So start from very basics. So every topic is from very basic. That's what I can assure you. What is Kubernetes and why do we need Kubernetes? The architecture of Kubernetes and what is the difference between ECS and EKS? So for AWS services, we have ECS and EKS. If you look at the Cloud Console, we have EKS here. That's called Elastic Kubernetes Service, and that's the most popular for every cloud service provider. They have a leverage. Kubernetes is an open source tool, software, and it's invented by Google. Google has invented that, and no one handles load better than Google. And that's what they have been using from last a decade, and that's what they have been managing their load using Kubernetes. So, and that's what it's much more mature product than any other container orchestration engine. And then so Kubernetes we gonna understand, and every cloud provider has leveraged this Kubernetes, and they have their own flavor of the application. Like for AWS, we have EKS. For Azure, we have AKS. Azure Kubernetes Service. For Google Cloud, we have GKE, Google Kubernetes Service. And once we understand one of the services, it's very easy to relate other services. So that's what it is. So we just need to know one, and it's very easy to understand other how they're. If you talk about AWS, we are learning here in AWS. It doesn't mean that we need to learn Azure and GCE from very scratch, Google Cloud from very scratch. No, once we understand one cloud service provider, every other cloud service providers works in the same way. Only the terminology changes. Here I could call EC2 instance, okay, to create servers. AWS in AWS we call EC2, and for the networking I call it VPC. So other cluster of service providers, they would name it compute, they would call this VCN, they would call this networking, whatever. Just only the name changes, but the root functionality of all the service providers is just the same. So once we understand one cloud service provider, it's easy to understand other cloud service provider. Uh, so that's how it is. And Kubernetes, we're going to talk about what is this pod, what do we mean by pod, how do we deploy pod, uh, what is this multi-container pod, can we deploy multiple container in a pod, what is this inter-pod and intra-pod communication, what is this pod life cycle, and various services in Kubernetes, node pod, cluster IP, load balancer, how can we use this, and what is the advantages of it, the replica sets, what do we mean by replica sets, the CloudWatch container insights, what all metrics, how to configure, how to first start CloudWatch, enable CloudWatch to collect metrics, container metrics, and then what is this horizontal pod autoscaler and this cluster autoscaler, how do we enable these things. So we're going to talk about a lot about Kubernetes here. That's the container orchestration engine. And so that's the syllabus on the container engine. And at last but not the least, DevOps. So we need to understand the DevOps as well. What is the DevOps life cycle? Uh, how performance engineering fits in DevOps? What is our contribution in this DevOps life cycle? What's our responsibility in the entire DevOps life cycle? What's our responsibility? What do we mean by shift left? What do we mean by shift right? And how do we create CI/CD pipeline? So the most important of it. So once we understood the DevOps, we need to understand what is this continuous integration. What tool do we use for continuous integration? Jenkins is the tool that we use, and that's what we're going to talk about it. How do we install Jenkins? Can we install Jenkins on the server itself? Can we create Jenkins as the container? How can we leverage? So there are various ways you can install Jenkins. We're going to talk about that, and everything is hands-on here because you're going to create your own CI/CD pipeline in Jenkins. We're going to demonstrate the CI/CD pipeline using JMeter. tool. We will have one dummy script, and we're gonna trigger that dummy script. The Once the developer checks in the code, your all the jobs. What all you see here? These are the jobs. So Git job. So what is this GitHub? What's the significance of GitHub? How do we how can we schedule automatic triggering of the pipeline? How can we configure that in GitHub? Because the developer will be putting their code in the GitHub, and as soon as they check in their code in the GitHub, all the jobs should be auto triggered. There should not be any manual intervention. Their jobs would be built. If the job is built successfully, it has to be deployed. It has to be deployed in testing server as well. Once it is deployed in testing server, the functional QA team has to trigger this Selenium scripts. Once that is successful, I can do my performance testing stuff here. So that's where we come in, and we'll create jobs for the performance testing part. So we'll create our own job in JMeter job, and then once that is successful, we can push the code to production. So we're gonna create jobs here, and we're gonna understand how do we configure this, how do we create freestyle jobs, how do we configure the email notifications, and then we're going to understand. So that's about the Jenkins, and we're going to also understand the AWS services that we have in CI/CD pipeline. So like on the likes of we have CI/CD pipeline, we have a lot of services here in AWS. We're going to understand code pipeline, we have code build, we have a lot of services. If we don't intend to use Jenkins, so AWS has, see, these cloud providers make sure that people do not go for any third-party tool. So they have CloudWatch, so that people do not go for Dynatrace or AppDynamics, because they have everything in. They want to have everything out of the box. But the best part with AWS is that they have this option as well, that you can use Jenkins as well. Here in this case, you do not need to use their own software. You can integrate with third-party tool as well. That's the thing they have in AWS. So we can also integrate their own software or Jenkins uh, uh, working in AWS. So that will be the entire course syllabus, uh, and this will go for like 2 months, 8 weeks. We go for 8 weeks. It's what 45 hours, 45 hours to 50 hours. We devote this entire course syllabus. It goes for 8 weeks, so 2 months. Uh, every day, 1 hour. Weekdays, 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. And you can just understand what will I learn by the end of the course. So you can just go over this, and you're gonna start. So everything, I would say, it's from covered from very scratch. So from very beginning, if you have zero knowledge, that's fine. We have you have you have covered yourself. So that's no need to worry about if I'm new to this and all. So this is for those people only. If someone is new to this thing, we understand that cloud and containers and DevOps, these things are new to IT, and we need to take care of those stuff. So everything is from scratch. You know, all we need is your enthusiasm to learn. That's it. If you are enthusiastic to learn more, we are there to help. And the course starts with core cloud concepts, as I was speaking. It covers 20 to 25 AWS services. So a lot of 3 weeks of dedicated AWS sessions. Everything microservices, monolithic, Linux command line. You'll be as comfortable working in Linux as you are with Windows. That's what I can assure you. Container orchestration engine, Kubernetes, CloudWatch. How do we monitor metrics? You can also use self-scripting as well. We're going to talk about performance monitoring. If you do not have any commercial tools, you can collect your metrics in CloudWatch, or you can also use self-scripting to automate your stuff in Linux, and then CI/CD pipeline. So there's a link here. This is the link. of the website where you can find all the details. I'm going to ping this over the chat window. Okay, so Prabhajit, I see your question. Uninstall will be covered. See, once you know how to install it, it's easy to understand uninstall it. If I'm using, suppose, uh, Debian flavor of of Linux, like Ubuntu, or if I'm using CentOS family like Red Hat, okay. So yum and apt, these are the two commands. So I'm going to demonstrate this. So currently this is Red Hat, okay. This operating system, what you see is a Red Hat operating system. It's a CentOS family. So I just need to be first root user first. So I am now root user. So I can do some administrative activity. I can install. So the if you want to install something, so yum install is the command that we use. Okay, and so there are various ways we can install this. If you have a RPM package, you can install that. Yes, it is going to be 5 days training. Yes, you are right, Rama. 5 days, weekdays. Yes. If you want to install something, yum install, and then you can write whatever you want to install, Jenkins.io, whatever. So you can just, and it will install something. And if you want to uninstall it, is that also simple. The way you install the same thing, we need to uninstall. If you're using RPM package, suppose if you have one RPM package and if you want to run that, so I'm going to just tell you that how do we run the RPM packages, how do we install any software. It's easy to uninstall after that. So if I have to tell you how this works, so this is the Red Hat operating system. So first I need to update the operating system. That's what you do, right? In Windows, first thing, once you provision any operating system, what do? You do Windows update to make sure all the packages, all your files are updated, you don't have any bug fixes, all are covered. So I would do yum update first. So we'll start from this basics. So first of all, so I have already done that. So it's no packages are showing up here. Okay, and then you can just so yum install anything. You can just do a yum install Java. So it will install, or Jenkins. So it will install those things. So yeah. Yes, you will understand all those things. So it's easy. So it all depends on the how do you want to install. There are various ways you can install this yum install or RPM packages, anything the way you want. Uh, Rafiq has asked me privately. I think Rafiq, tomorrow you'll have your next demo. Okay, I need not reply you privately. So tomorrow, OpenShift, no, we are not covering OpenShift. So we're gonna talk about Docker mostly, Docker as a container engine. We're going to talk about that here. So you can just go over this course syllabus here. We are covering AWS Cloud, Linux, command line, microservices, Docker, Kubernetes, EKS. EKS is the AWS offering of Kubernetes, Jenkins, and CI/CD pipeline, and that's what it is. We have um, 45 hours duration, so 1 hour every day in weekdays. So it will go for eight weeks. No project based. So you're gonna learn stuff here, Rafiq. You're gonna learn stuff here. You can type in publicly. That's fine. No, it's not gonna be project based, but you're gonna understand everything. How do we work in a project? First of all, you need to understand how do we. So we're gonna talk about how do we create. So if I'm talking about AWS, I'm gonna talk about how do we create application in AWS. So you can relate to any project in general. Okay, I'm going to show you, I'm going to create subnets, I'm going to create instances, I'm going to create gateway, internet gateway, I'm going to configure I'm going to show you everything in a workshop. Like a workshop you do, everything is hands-on here, so you can relate very well to any project. Okay. uh, yes, and you can just see this timing here for participants in India. So today is 9th March, so that's what we started with demonstration. You'll be notified on your next demonstration. Mostly it will be tomorrow. Yes, and you'll be notified in the WhatsApp group. But be ready tomorrow as well on the same time. And for participate in US, so 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. and in UK 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. Uh, yes, and then you can find my reviews here, and then you're gonna talk about what will I learn by the end of this course. You can just go over this, and the entire course syllabus is here. Okay. Yes, you will be very much comfortable to take up certifications. Okay, after going over this course, you will be very much comfortable. Mm, okay, taking up certifications as well. See, we do not guarantee you certification, but you'll be very much comfortable because I myself certified, so I know what all they expect. For the small thing like billing and those stuff, you may need to refer some documents, how the billing works and all. Those questions also they ask in the certification exam, but we are not covering that how they are billed and how much they are billed and those. Mm, SLAs, but I can guide you where to go over. But 80%, 70 to 80% we are covering the core part of the knowledge base that you need to know in a cloud. We are covering that here. Okay. So see, the course lays down a strong foundation for your cloud learning journey. Later, you can go for certifications. You can definitely try first cloud practitioner, that everyone should be, not technical, non-technical people should can also, sorry, they need to also take up the certification if they are interested in cloud. And then obviously once you have gathered enough information, you can write this solution architect associate exam. Okay, so Sunil has asked me a question: why are APM tools are used to extend by organization having going with cloud? Again, so Sunil, it depends on the organization. Okay, if they are thinking that they are getting benefits of using by using any third-party APM tools like Dynatrace or AppDynamics, they are going with that. But but they may, and they may not be using AWS. Okay, they may not be using AWS, or they do not like the pricing of CloudWatch Container Insights. So it all depends on a lot of stuff. But what I mentioned, that the cloud, if AWS, they think, they target that once the customer is using their service or cloud, they don't, they are targeting that not no one should go to the third party tools like Dynatrace or AppDynamics. So they are developing tools in house. They're trying to get everything out of the box. So knowing cloud is the most important thing now. If know any cloud service provider, once you know one cloud service provider, it's easy to understand others. Like once you know AWS, you can relate in what how the things work in in Azure and Google. And knowing cloud, any one cloud service provider is the primary thing that you should target nowadays, because uh, that's what the future is. Everyone would be using cloud, and the hybrid cloud is what is the trend. So what they would have, big organizations, okay, they would not like to host their database. They not like to expose their database on the cloud service provider with any. So what they can have, they can use the database on-prem. So they would create the infrastructure just for to host the database, so that they don't like to share their data, and they don't want to host their data to public cloud, but they can use their web server or application server using any cloud service provider. So hybrid cloud is the trend. So we'll understand everything about cloud here. So okay. So people, you can ask your questions. So I'm done with this. You can chat. You can put in the chat window. You can also talk to me. That's fine. And everything is here. You can. I hope I shared the link. Yes, yes. And you can go over the entire course syllabus, which I just walked over. And yes, and everything will be. Yes, those things. So that's the what will I learn by end of this course? That's what you're gonna learn everything about after running this course.
So will this course will help us to write any certifications in AWS?
Yes, as I mentioned, I answered your question, Prabodh. So you can just see this after running this course, you can very much write cloud practitioner and solution architect. You would be ready to write those exams, but you need to also refer few documents because they ask questions which we are not covering, like simple questions like how the pricing model works and stuff like that. So for those things, you need to refer the few documents. I can refer you, but yes, the core part of it, the certification, the core part of it, 70 to 80%, we are covering here in this course.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I hope if you are good, we can wind up the session. So it's about we are about
I
time. Sure.
I just have one question.
Sure. Rafi, go ahead.
This
Yeah.
is Rafiq. Yeah. Like about the support. I mean, after the during the course, if I have a question, how can I get a hold of you, or would you support me, just going over things if I run into any issues, like, whatever issues it might I run into, maybe I'm not able to connect to Jenkins or,
Yes,
Kubernetes.
obviously, those things I'm going to demonstrate you how to do that. And in whatever we are discussing in the course, if you have any doubt on that, you can definitely ask me any point of time. Okay, that is beyond doubt. So you can definitely ask whatever we are covering here. In that, you can ask me any question. So we will have a WhatsApp. We'll have a separate WhatsApp group. Once we finalize the batch, we'll have a separate WhatsApp group. You can contact me anytime, and I'm going to
Yeah,
reply.
what I was asking you more like, if I run into any system support, like, would you come in and look into my system to see if what am I doing wrong, or what is the issue about not being able to connect to certain things, things like that.
We can look into that, but if it is beyond our course syllabus, if it issue is something else, if the
No,
issue is on the database, let's say.
no, it's not.
Uh,
Whatever we are learning, like,
no,
whatever I.
absolutely, Rafi.
Okay. Okay, that's all my question is. Okay, thank you.
There's no doubt on that. Absolutely, you can ask. So I'm going over this, and I'm facing this, and you told me this. So how can we implement this? Obviously,
Okay.
questions of those sort are always accepted and always
Okay.
welcome.
So Raushan, I have one question. Um, so at the company I work, they use OpenShift.
Okay.
So if I join this course, right, will that help me with OpenShift? I know you said we are not covering OpenShift, but at least will I get a better understanding?
OpenShift is what? It's a container engine, Rama. May I ask? OpenShift. When you say OpenShift, so
Mm-hmm.
OpenShift is like container orchestration engine or container engine. May I know?
It is a PaaS, right? The platform as a service. And then we have all the containers, pods on it.
Right. You see, as part of this course, we are covering Kubernetes here. Okay. I think that's the container orchestration engine, OpenShift. Okay. That's
Yeah.
what it is. And
Yeah.
we are covering here Kubernetes here because Kubernetes is a much more stable product, but we can look into that. Okay, but we are not covering specifically here the OpenShift part of it. Okay, not in detail. We are covering uh, OpenShift is a commercial product, as you can see this, and we are covering Kubernetes here, and that's what most of the people are using Kubernetes. It's a commercial tool of OpenShift, but so what as part of the course we are covering Kubernetes, not OpenShift, but you can relate some of the things. So currently I have not worked on OpenShift, to be honest, Rama.
Okay.
So I have worked in Kubernetes as only Prometheus, Kubernetes. So if you have questions related to that, we can get that. But OpenShift, it's a commercial product, so not everyone can use that.
Right.
But we'll be covering Kubernetes here in this course.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you're gonna have access to videos. You're gonna have access to my PPT slides. We have a lot of things to cover here. If you look at one of my batches, so we're gonna cover everything. Everything will be given in slides. You'll be given this access to the cloud Google Drive, and yes, you'll be getting access to the recording videos daily. All the recorded videos you'll have access to, lifetime access. And you can find this information in this link, the one I gave you. You will have you will get some certificate also, and yeah, you will have lifetime access to the videos, and it's to YouTube. We provide see lifetime access to recorded videos. So yes. So I would advise everyone who are interested in this course to go over this link. I'm going to paste the link again. You will find much more information here, and you can contact Mr. Kumar. He is the person to contact for this course. Mr. Kumar, you can find his phone number here. Okay, let me just check it. So, he is there in the WhatsApp group as well. You can get his number. So that's his number. You can just get in touch with him if you're interested in this course. Is Kumar Gupta. You can contact him, and he will be explaining everything. If you have any questions, technical questions, you can shoot any. You can ask in the WhatsApp group now, and anytime you can ask. I am also there in the WhatsApp group, and for registration related topics, you need to contact Mr. Kumar Gupta. His phone number is here. So that's the website. Okay. So I'm going to chat again. Paste this. Yes, we will meet tomorrow. Yes. Okay. I'm going. Okay. Yes. Yes, tomorrow. Yes, we'll meet tomorrow. Yes. So yes. So thank you everyone for joining session. So I have pasted. I think I'm just pasting. Somehow I'm just so. Rafiq, I'm able to just send message to Rafiq privately. I don't know. I want
Yeah, I
to
got
send.
it. I got
Okay,
it.
Rafiq,
Oh,
sure. But I wanted to send to everyone in the group.
okay.
Yes. Okay. Oh, I don't know why this is happening. Okay, I'm going to paste this link again. Thank you, everyone. Okay, there's some glitch in the. I'm going to paste this link in the WhatsApp group, and you can go over this link. And you can just go over esatrainingsolutions.org, Cloud Performance Engineering and DevOps, the complete course. You just go over this, and you'll find all the details. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll meet again tomorrow. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.